A leader is not shaped in moments of peace. A leader is shaped in moments when they are able to actually adjust in moments of crisis.
You can either be popularly correct or you can be factually correct, okay? And remember, whenever you are a leader, you don't always have to lean to what is popularly.
E-Citizen came in to stop forms of corruption that were going on at the moment in time, right? So now, but guess what? E-Citizen has its own form of corruption itself.
Ruto is a one-term president.
You people say William Ruto has to go. How? Last year they said, mobilize people on Twitter, then occupy. Then eventually they're able to get into parliament. But you cannot use the same formula again, then get some government by surprise twice. No government will be that foolish.
Please tell me one good thing that Cabinet Secretary Mukomen has done in his span as interior. Right now, go.
Do we need to put...
Do you even know? Exactly! I choose to neglect the needs of the people that I'm leading for the sole purpose of my own personal agenda. And one thing I want to say, Kenyans will remember. Why? Nice to meet you, but please tell me a bit about yourself so I can know who you are.
Yeah, thank you so much. Nice to see you, man. My name is Mark Ouko, the Youth Coordinator for National Students Council of Kenya. And I'm also an advisor to the PS of Interior, Raymond Omolo, on youth affairs.
Nice.
Yeah, so government-ish.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, for me, I'm a normal Kenyan.
Yeah.
I'm Simon, probably known as Simon Says. I'm a content creator, also a voice artist, but also I'm a very avid person who even articulate my thoughts on KTN. You'll be seeing me every Sunday at 10 p.m. That's usually what I do. Yeah. Basically, I'm a talking head. Yeah. That's me right there. Yes, exactly.
Let's get rolling, man.
All right, let's go. What's the first question?
The president needs time to deliver on his promises.
What do you think?
First things first, what I think is this. When it comes to President Ruto, even my stance right now is, at this time of his regime, even I would say is that he has gotten over 2 years. You see, 2 years right now is how much time has passed. So these 2 years going by, he has actually gotten the most pushback of any president in such a short span of time. And then when it comes to giving him more time, this is not the time that even a Mamboga has to even that they don't have any more time to get more money on their plate, even more food on their plate. They literally do not have any more time. That's even, you see even people like me who are maybe against even a lot of the policies and the direction. I'm not necessarily against even Ruto himself as a human being. I'm against the direction in which he's taking the country and the leadership and the way even he handles leadership. And the way he's handling leadership, he should not actually be given more time towards the direction he's taking the country. He should be pulled back and actually restructured and actually change the direction and change the way in even shaping even the agenda for this particular nation. That's even what I say is that time, no. Time for change, yes. And altering the change is necessary because we got another 2 years of him. You know what I mean? So we got another 2 years. So we have to now change the direction. So the time for change is now, not time for continuation of the direction he's already going. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in my view, I don't think he needs more time or less time. When he came to this job, there was a stipulated time. 5 years. So there's neither more time or less time unless there's an impeachment or him resigning. So there's a constant time that he can only work 5 years. Okay. So the question that I think now we'll ask is that perhaps is it the energy that people have a problem with, where his energy is being directed, but one of the hugest challenge I think with President Ruto is that when he was coming in, he came with a lot of promises, okay? And I feel like a number of people whom voted for him feel like there's a huge disproportion between, what he promised them and what is being implemented. I think even himself, he has been able to acknowledge that, and he has given this acknowledgement because of, when they came in, they were bankrupt, etc., the economy, there was this global condition, etc. But I think at the end of the road, I think, let's see, up to the end of the 5-year period, that's when we'll know we were able to gauge, was he able to do all these things? Because the manifesto that he promised Kenya, he said that he will be able to do it within a 5 years' time. So I think the problem right now isn't necessarily about time, but it's because the hope is wearing off, right? The hope that he planted on people and the disproportion between what he promised to do and, what's being actually done is the disproportion.
You can have a plan, right?
Yeah.
You can have a plan. You have a structured plan. Like me and you, we got a plan to go this particular direction.
Yeah.
We have a plan for even even we started this organization, we started a particular business.
Yeah.
We have a plan even to be here. But there are things that come in between that may actually now help, it make us now change our direction towards that particular goal. Just because you have set manifestos and set goals and you constantly refer them back to them does not, and then now towards the direction and the way to achieve them, and the nation and the people are constantly telling you that this is not the way we want to go towards achieving the goal. Notice we're not criticizing the goal, we're criticizing the direction. And when you actually now are told as a leader that the way you're taking us is not the way we want to do, your job as a leader, even what I say is the true definition of a leader, is someone who's able to adjust in the moment of crisis. Even as you mentioned that indeed he came in with all these crises and issues. A leader is not shaped in moments of peace. A leader is shaped in moments when they are able to actually adjust in moments of crisis. That is what the true content of a leader is. And when a leader is not able to adjust, that says a lot about the content of their character and the direction in which, even how are they even able to even listen to their citizens that they actually lead. Not even they, him. How is even President Ruto not even listening and making adjustments towards even the citizens who are crying? From even back in the day, last year, was it not the protest that was going on? The protest, 2023 finance bill. How are you behaving the same way that you behaved last year, but you're choosing now the words not to come out of your mouth, but come out of Cabinet Secretary Mukumen's mouth? And now the vile tone, so on and so forth. You see, now it's it's not the goal. It's the fact that you're not listening to the citizenry who are constantly saying the way and the direction you're taking us is not the right way. Adjust.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps just last call around this. So whenever you're a leader, okay, and whenever you're in a space of leading people, there are two forms of correctness that a person can be, and I think you're alluding to the one side of it. You can either be popularly correct or you can be factually correct, okay? And remember, whenever you're a leader, you don't always have to lean to what is popularly, okay? So, for example, you're the president and, the minister of finance is bringing you the facts, we're in a debt crisis, etc., etc. As a president, you cannot going to be leaning for sympathy against people, telling them, we're in debt, etc., etc. But, you need to tell the people, like, if we're not able to remove the current subsidies, we're not able to do 1 or 2, 3, that I think will hurt us. But, in the long term, we'll gain from that. And, these are dynamical issues that are coming as that you didn't expect, that you had not, you had not set the people for that kind. I don't know if you're getting me.
I get you.
So you can be either factually correct or you're popularly correct. So the country is in a debt crisis. And as the president, the buck stops with you, but you still want to play popular. And you're saying if you're going to play popular, you want the taxation level to still remain the same. You still want the subsidies to exist. The country is going to go down. And there will be a complete shutdown of the country. So what do you decide? If you decide to be popular, the country is going to go down. But if you decide to align to that which is factually correct, there's 1 or 2 things that you need to do so that in the long term, you need to save a country. And sometimes that might not be so popular. And I think that's the state where I think Ruto finds himself.
You're thinking that President Ruto is actually factually correct?
I think he has been largely factually correct, especially in terms of, the economic lens of things.
How? In which way? For example, considering that right now we're in 11 trillion shillings worth of debt.
Yeah. So if, for example, you're in a debt crisis, okay, and you
not for example, that's what we're in right.
Yeah, we're in a debt.
There's no for example.
We're in a debt crisis, okay, and you still want to maintain the subsidies, say like the ones that President Kenyatta had maintained because of the COVID crisis, whatever, and you say maintaining this will not be able to, we will not be able to maintain around our fiscal budgets. So sometimes I think the president has to do that which is unpopular and take that which will be able to sustain the country in the long-term whole.
Okay, interesting that you say that. One thing I would say even about even the factually correct and everything, one fact is that the allocation of more funds towards even the State House renovation, that is not factually that's something that we should put our funds towards. And I don't think even being saying that even that's a factually correct statement right there. But the fact that indeed saying that the president is factually correct, no. And being factually correct versus being popularly correct is not an either or. You can actually even be both. You can have even a popular fact in the sense that I am actively taking a factual steps towards even making sure that I mitigate costs and not going up and down, and making sure that we incur more costs within our travel expenses, or now all of a sudden State House needs renovation, or so many other expenses. Then being factually correct, which is also popular, I'm going to use this money for the sole purpose of Kenyans who actually need it more. And that's why his role is even here as president. That's why he's here. Hustler. Hustler. Now, what hustler is he doing now? He's hustler by name, not hustler by actions.
You can't fight corruption if it serves your interests.
I have an interesting take on this, but I want to hear you first. This one is, you might be shocked by what I say.
So that's a very interesting thing. So in Kenya, the political class, okay, is, and sometimes I think when we talk about corruption, we think particularly so much in the public space, and corruption happens trickle down even in the private spaces. But let's look at it in terms of like the public, because that's what mutually. So there's something called structural dependency. Okay, so structural dependency is where you find like the political class use the resources to feed the constituents in a way that just sorts out their basic needs, but still structurally makes them still dependent on them. Okay, but the second level into it is so that these people don't start thinking in a different way. Okay, so you normally get that if you look at the financial classes of people who are saying the middle class or the high level class in Kenya, the way how they think around political policies, etc., they think around policies, etc. But for the person down there, they just depend on handouts. They depend on how are we, fall to mouth. So I think the thing how politicians use corruption is to create a long-term structural dependency that these people continue depending on us. Okay, we buy them, then we use more money to still maintain them to still be dependent on us.
Okay, I actually agree with this. Here's the thing: with this prompt, it says that you can actually fight corruption while still being involved in it. I think that's the whole premise of the prompt that was stated. Correct. So then now here's the thing: that is factually true. When you're actually in the thick of things, and this is actually even noticeable in the Prime Minister of was it Thailand? I think so. The Prime Minister, no, of Switzerland. I can't remember. It's one of those Asian countries. What he did was this. Very interesting. He came in. He fought corruption first from his opponents while still engaging in it. You can fight corruption, but still engaging in corruption yourself. And then do you know what he did? After he actually fought his opponents, he fought his very own family. And then now turned the tables and fought the corruption within his own family members. You can actively engage in corruption by fighting other forms of corruption. I can engage in corruption in the low level, for example, be it now paying off the co-op here or doing this. But I'm actively engaging, which is now, this was particularly facing my own self-interest. You see, I can engage in corruption for the sole purpose of my own self-interest. But let's say for my opponent, I see you're engaging in this particular form of corruption. I can then put in measures to mitigate and actually stop that form of corruption. Now, the citizenry, for example, can actually now be appreciative when this form of corruption is actually stopped. But at the same time, yes, they will cry that indeed my version is still going on. But at the same time, I'm still fighting corruption on this side. Fighting corruption is not, nobody's absolutely not corrupt. And in that, because I think even the people who actually think that a corruption-less society are just, that is just something that's just left for philosophers. That is not something that's actually practical and actually lived in real practical life. When it comes to real life, I recognize that indeed Kenyans, even you're corrupt. You know it. You're watching us with your corruptness there, and you see that we know you, and that's the truth. And what happens is, but your version of corruption, you've appeased it mentally, saying that indeed this is a necessity I have to do for the sustenance of life. But in fact, that when you actually now comes in even now larger government things and everything from even for example, let's use e-citizen for example. Let's use e-citizen. E-citizen came in to stop forms of corruption that were going on at the moment in time, right? So now, but guess what? E-citizen has its own form of corruption itself because we don't understand who actually the true owners of e-citizen funds are and everything. So you can fight one version of corruption by bringing in a different system that actually even has its own form of corruption. And corruption evolves. Corruption evolves. It evolves from system to system. If that was the form of government uses to pay, wasn't that payroll installed so that now we can actually litigate some form of corruption that was happening in the Kenyeji ways back in the olden Mwai Kibaki presidency? Then all of a sudden, IFMIS came in. But guess what? Corruption evolved. Because of the fact that corruption evolves, corruption actually can be fought while bringing in a new version of corruption. So you can actively be part of corruption and actually fight corruption. That is actually something practically true.
But you see, also maybe another thing I would say that most people, how do I say it? Principally, they don't hate corruption because of the principles around it, stealing money, etc., but they hate corruption in the sense that they're not part of those who are eating it. That's the thing, okay?
I agree.
That's the thing. People love it when it comes, they're also eating it, right? Because so you get Kenyans who are principally social media saying, oh, we don't love corruption, etc., etc. But when a politician comes to them, these are the same people who are asking him for handouts. And when this politician also comes out, of course, logically, he also has to return his money. So the problem isn't that people hate corruption principally, but it's because they're not part of those people who are eating. And you'll get us, it's interestingly, people who are fighting corruption when they're saying not specifically like government, when they get into government and they start being part of those who eats the money, they keep quiet. Look at somebody like Raila's side of
say it. Hey, but I even agree with you. Let me even agree with you even further. Let me even agree with you more, because when you mentioned even about corruption, you say they're hating because they can't get in. It's like you're getting from outside the club, you can't even get in. Quoting a famous philosopher, Chris Brown. Now, one thing is now, because of that statement, a lot of people, actually, I would even go further and say it's the threshold. Sometimes I'm not able to afford to get and actually be able to actually get the fruits of corruption. Because someone is asking me for, let's say, 30,000 for me to execute a certain tender or something, hence, and I'm not able to get it. So that I would feel some type of way. Like, for example, now I feel like the threshold has been too high. So I even, let's propose this. Let's make corruption more affordable. Let's make corruption more affordable so that every Kenyan can actively engage with it. And let's actually even go further. Let's have some ethics within corruption. Let's have a way in which that indeed there are ethical boundaries within corruption, and there are ways in which even you can casually even ask for a kickback. There are casual ways in which that even you, even as a person who's even asking for a kickback, you even have a threshold. Don't ask 50%. There's a threshold, 15, 20%. Where kijana, stop asking for too much. There's ethics also within corruption that we also need to instill when we already accept that indeed corruption is part of our society. So let's not even go further and start even discussing ethics of corruption. What are my other ethics that maybe you won't even add? There are ethics that we should even add even within corruption so we can actually now execute it.
Kenyan media is biased against the president and doesn't highlight his wins.
I'll allow you to go here because here I'm gonna.
No, you're in that space, so you give us like a prompt start around it.
Okay, you want me to start?
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Kenyan media is in no way biased against the presidency. I would say this is the fact that the presidency is full of a lot of incompetence and a lot of inactive. They literally now don't even know how to message a lot of things. And then now the Kenyan media only highlights even a lot of that, even though the downfall, even when it comes to journalism, the journalist's job is to keep is the fourth stem, is the fourth, well, it's the fourth, it's like fourth, is the fourth media, it's like the fourth something. Fourth estate, there you go. I was like fourth something. There it is. This is the fourth estate. It is to basically check the government. Now, a government that's being kept in check is not one that's being born against. When you're constantly being kept in check, does not necessarily mean that you should be constantly crying that indeed that people are against you. What you should be mainly focusing on is the fact that because the media highlights certain things, there are ways that even the government even puts in propaganda within the media. That is a fact. There are various even segments, even there are features that even the government even buys within the media. Another issue that even happens a lot is this. The government at times even is the biggest advertiser within these media houses. That's what you have to take note as Kenyans. And when this happens is this. When the government now plays a role in removing funds from media houses, a lot of media houses now literally have it becomes a push and pull kind of thing because the government now is actively taking a step to remove money from the media enterprise itself. Even further, I can even firmly state this. The Kenyan government right now, President Ruto's regime right now, has actually even frozen funds for the Standard Media Group. It has frozen funds and is literally now, Standard Media Group employees are not going to be paid this month. And that is all because they have actually put incentives and actually put even mitigations, even ways in which they have frozen their accounts. Now, if you've noticed, even the way the Standard Group has actually been actively speaking out against even the government and even highlighting their shortcomings with the last protest and so many other things that they've been falling short. Now that Shah even has come up with issues. This kind of relationship between the Kenyan government and the media of animosity in the push and pull is what leads to the highlighting, it leads to a lot of friction in between, but it also shows that indeed you should also make sure that the government should also make sure that indeed they recognize that KBC is the only station that's going to air them in a positive light because they are 100% in control of them. Okay? But at the same time, they should recognize that the media is there to put them in check, not to glorify them and not to be their petting, saying that you're doing a good job. Look at you. No, that is not the media's role. Or?
Yeah, I think of it in two ways, okay? I think many times people tend to forget that, first of all, media is business, okay? And also when you're doing business, you're trying to look at what's the highest, consumer demand, okay? So in the media space, you realize that things which are political in nature have the most, consumption from people who consume media things, okay? So like the other day you look at Murkomen. So if you look at it on 10 things that Murkomen does, okay, there are many things, of course, we know he has done, like a series of Ministry of Interior, but that political sound beats about telling people shout to beat. That's what I think now the media, because, media tends to look at that thing that will most sell. Okay, that has the most higher consumer demand. At State House, there are a number of visits that happen there. There are a lot of things that government there are a lot of bills that are signed, etc., etc. But if you put that on a daily basis, that would get, heads rolling. If you tell them about, State House is taking 873 billion on whatever, that's now very political. And if you talk about that around State House, it will sell much more. So first of all, it's the business side of media is that it looks for how does it, for commercial purposes. But secondly is this. The reason as to why Ruto is extremely unpopular, his approval ratings is at like 12%. And
is that low?
Yeah, but I have one of the things, this one I talked to him, I can't forget that last year on July 19th, I was with him and I told him, it's a meeting there with some people with Setas, I told him, whenever a president is coming into power, there are people who are called the gatekeepers of power, okay? And if you bypass them, even if you're the most popular, you'll still have problems. Now, in the case of Kenya, there are 5 gatekeepers of power, okay? We have 1, the media, okay? The 2 is the opposition, and in Kenyan case is Raila Odinga for the last part. Then 3 is the military. The 4th is the National Intelligence Service, and 5 is the bourgeoisie. The bourgeoisie are the people who finance the country, the SK Masharias of our country, okay? The Wanjigis. So I told him, Mr. President, out of these 5, you only have 2 people on your side. You have the military, at least for now, although the National Intelligence Service is also not working for you very well. So let's say you have 2. 3, the media is not working for you. Both the mainstream media and also the online media is not working for you. 2, if you go to the bourgeoisie, the people who finance everything, the kina SK Masharia, kina Wanjigi, they're not on your side. So these guys, in whatever spaces they control, they'll make you extremely unpopular. Then thirdly, if you look at the opposition, fairly enough, he was able to get Raila's inside, so that diluted it. So I told him, if you do not control gatekeepers of power, you'll have a lot of problem.
I get what you mean, but here's the issue. When you give a lot of ammunition to the people who are against you, and it's pretty easy for you because you've come up with so many shortcomings, that is also the fault is on you. Yeah. And you have to also recognize no president is ever loved while they are actually president. They're loved only later when they're actually even gone. The president, Uhuru, got a lot of criticism, but no other presidency has ever gotten this level of criticism and this level of pushback and this level of animosity from the public naturally and organically, honestly. And it's not even financed by anybody. Is actually even very organically on social media that even led even people who are not even interested in politics at all, they're actively engaged. So literally what you have to recognize is this: hate and animosity can actually even get people who are not even engaged on politics to actively now want to even go deeper. So even when you say that the media in itself, because it's incentivized to project hate towards the president, that is not the case. It's the fact that the presidency has fallen short so many times. The cabinet secretary, please tell me one good thing that Cabinet Secretary Mukomen has done in his span as interior right now. Go.
Do we need to continue?
Do you even know? Exactly. We don't.
Like I said, I thought you wanted to raise the hand, so I feel like no. I mean, there are a number of things that the cabinet secretary
Mukomen specifically. Go.
I mean, one, there is the new has been opening of new offices, whatever, stationing of people. There is the whatever Usalama that's there was this campaign Usalama, whatever Mwananchi Usalama thing that he was doing all over the country, meeting administrative officers, police officers from all over the country. I personally was with him at Coast, moving the country, trying to, then there was also the police reforms, whatever they did.
I see.
So there are 1 or 2.
He's not done many police reforms. He's not done anything yet, seriously. But he's not even had it. Even how long has he even been there?
It's not been long.
It's not been long. And then, so he's not done any police reforms seriously. Actually, he needs to do a lot of police reforms. What he needs to do actually is actually restructure the way in which we actually even train our officers, so that now, because even when it comes to even officers, one thing I want to point out, because we're here on the insecurity aspect, is this: when it comes to cabinet secretaries and leaders, you're held to a higher standard by what you say and what you do. Don't complain about how you portrayed. Complain about the fact that you've not executed certain roles, because you're held to a higher standard. And when it comes to even the police reforms and everything, what he needs to do is literally go to the depth and actually understand, how do we train our police officers to them even crowd control, how even our national security, and how do we train our police officers even when they're younger guys, how do we train even handling equipment and actually firearms, because the irreparable damage that the police even has done towards even fellow Kenyans, killing even Mwangi. And at the same time, he just died now at 3:30 yesterday at the recording of this time. He is dead, all because a young police officer, because young police officers tend to be more proactive and yet to be more engaging. They want to prove themselves and they feel that sense of power. I hang out with a lot of police officers, so I kind of know even the bravado, even when they get a little bit tipsy, say, well, unajua nini nani, hii serikali nini. That's the young one. The older guys who actually now know they're mellow, they're quiet, and actually they're the more dangerous ones, but they're more quiet. The young ones are more bravado. They're teaching them mental calmness and actually how to engage in a heightened situation, even when someone is shouting at you, "Kuma mamako!" And you should be able to now take that and learning how to even handle that yourself. Just even how even parents are taught. Don't shout at your child in public. Normal parenting things. Even that is very necessary when the police go to Kiganjo to even be taught how to become a police officer, because the duty of a police officer is key.
Gen Z protests undermine the rule of law.
Hey, that's different. That was not on the script. Interesting. Okay. Gen Z protests undermine the rule of law. I want to hear your person, because I'm against this.
Yeah, so this Gen Z thing, I think, so there are two sides into it, okay? So the Gen Z protest, in my view, the first time that it was held, especially in 2024, it was very organic, okay? It was very...
2023.
2024. Forget the 2023 was led by...
Oh, then I'm asking me. Yes, I remember.
Yeah,
okay.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the one in 2024 was very organic. But I think over time... so this is the thing normally I tell most Gen Zs, because, you know, we're all Gen Zs. So I don't really tell them, you cannot fool government twice, you know, and you cannot use one formula, you know, then recycle it. Then so like last year they said, you know, mobilize people on Twitter, then occupy. Then eventually they're able to get into parliament. But you cannot use the same formula again, then get government by surprise twice. No government will be that foolish. But I'll say this, I think there's a certain level of complexity around this Gen Z idea that I normally don't like speaking so much around it, but
Why?
I don't know, because I feel like many people will not agree, but I think it's real factually. So I feel like there is also a tribal sense into this thing, okay? So like, for example, if you look at even the most recent, the Gen Z protests, you are not able to see Gen Z protests in Nyanza. You're not able to see Gen Z protests largely in Western. Like what we saw last year, like it was so spontaneous all over the country. You're not able to see it in Nyanza. You're not able to see it in Western. You're not able to see it in Northeastern. You're not able to see it in larger parts of Eastern. You're not able to see it in also coastal parts. Even if Mombasa Town, but largely parts of coast, like what we saw in last year, you're not able to see it. Then come to Nairobi, you're not able to see the protests in Kibra, Kawangware, Madari, largely parts of them of what we traditionally see. But now where you're seeing the protest is happening, you're seeing it in Thika Road, Juja, etc., then the Mulima side. So what I've often been telling myself, it seems like in Kenya, there are two construct sides of politics. There is this hereditary side of Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. Then there are people who come from, you know, Jaramogi side, which is currently being held by Raila Odinga. Then there's this other side of the country, which is being held by the Mulima people, the Mulima side of politics, the central people. And these two sides can never seemingly be on the same side on politics. So I normally ask people, what did Uhuru Kenyatta do to the central side of people, the people from the central side, so that what was this extraordinary thing that Uhuru, if it was COVID was global, etc., the challenges we're facing were global. What did he do to them? And you look at the point at departure when the people of Mount Kenya decided to leave Uhuru's government was at the point when Raila Odinga came in, when that handshake thing happened. And even if you look at like William Ruto, of course, you know, a number of things that maybe Ruto has also, not maybe has done wrong, but if you look at the point of departure when the people from central Kenya left William Ruto was at the point when there was already, you know, whispers that Raila Odinga will be coming in. Then at the point when he came in and we saw also Rigathi Gachagua also being impeached, the point of departure was sealed. So we also need to ask ourselves, perceptively, is this thing really tribeless, or there's a tribal connotation around it? But also another thing we also need to ask ourselves around the people who are on the streets. There are three forms of crowds, okay? Number one, I normally tell people there are people whom we call organic crowds, okay? There are people who are just naturally aggravated by this. Number two, there are people who we call plastic crowds, okay? There are people who are like in Tao, you know, Ray was going to buy or something or two. Then they say, oh, people are protesting against Ruto. Me, I'm also joining it. So plastic, there was no intention, but as a byproduct, they just joined it. Mm-hmm. Then thirdly, there are people whom we call hired crowds. So hired crowds are people who are paid to come for this protest. So whenever there's this Gen Z protest, you need to ask yourself, last year it was organic. A number of these people who were for this protest, were they plastic? Were they organic, or are they hired crowds? From that intelligence, then government will ask themselves if they need to be worried or not.
Interesting that you mentioned this protest. You do realize that there were two protests that were going on, even the first one, even about Ojwang, and it was not only like one protest. And what you have to remember is this. This is not, I would not even want to even call it no longer a Gen Z protest. This is a youth protest. Because even a lot of people, even you would even see even Mau even leaders, there was some Mau guy walking around even in the protest itself. When you actually want to brand a youth protest as if it's some tribal thing, that is literally what I think that's only primitive. I even think that's even very that's even very foolish. Not on you, but the people who are actually spreading that propaganda. So I cannot even blame you because it's not even your fault. The main thing is this: when it comes to this sort of propaganda, even saying that indeed,
But you do acknowledge there was no protest in these areas that are largely
no. You see now you
was
now
no
you have to
protest in Nyanza, Western, all
here's the thing. I want to give you perspective. When it comes to Mombasa, there was even protests in Mombasa.
In Mombasa town.
Yes, there was even Mombasa. And that's not, you cannot even say, and it's trying to say that indeed this is purely a central issue and it's not an issue that other youth even should even incorporate it in is actually even wrong. Even saying that indeed, even saying that indeed, it's all central. So all the youth are excluded and everybody else is okay with the current government, that is a lie. That is also a lie. And the fact that indeed Kenyan youth are actually screaming and shouting because of an issue that has actually even happened even about even because the prompt was about this protest has led to the insecurity. It's actually leading to the insecurity. If that's right? Insecurity is leading to instability and security. I say this. You see, the Kenya government cabinet secretary was quick to call us protesters, even terrorists and people who are planning a coup. What I say is this. Terrorize the government that's actually terrorizing you. Stand on that. If the government is calling you a terrorist, that means terrorize them fully. Don't you dare cower or even fall back at all. Another thing is this, and I say don't only terrorize the president, don't limit it to the president. Your MCA, they're at home, terrorize him. Your MP, they're at home, terrorize her. Your women rep, terrorize her. Your senator, terrorize him. Those people need to remember indeed that they work for a certain constituency and indeed the way that they're taking this nation is literally the wrong way. And if they need proper adjustment, that is literally what Kenyan people need to shout and scream. Because one thing that we know for sure, that House of Representatives called the members of parliament has completely lost its way and it's completely become a rubber stamp for everything that the president says. Kenyans are tired, they're sick and tired of being sick and tired to the extent that we're even sick of it all. And what happens is this, when it comes to now even members, specifically the members of parliament, not even the president alone, because members of parliament are who legitimizes a lot of the presidential activities, then it trickles down to us from finance bills and other taxations and other even levies that are even levied upon us as citizenry. And what we're even screaming about is we're tired of even reason why even last year we ran even to Bunges because we could see that they're becoming a rubber stamp. Even right now we want to go to State House because we want to say, oh, so even you guys, running to you guys is not enough, let's go straight for the head. Let's go straight for the head because we're tired of it all. And Saba is also coming. This is not even done. And what I like is this. The fact that when we're pricking the government and the fact that even they're pushing back, they're even showing their true colors. And we're seeing the type of leaders we've actually been elected. And they want to even now say that indeed it's only a certain section of Kenyans. It's not everybody. Everybody really loves us. Nobody, no. Nobody loves you even that much because clearly you're taking the direction of Kenyans even the wrong way. All these MPs even coming up with these fake there's this two polls that you see that the best MPs, whatever. Those are just fake propaganda things that people are just putting out there to say that indeed that they're doing such a good job. You're not. Step it up as guys. And they're frustrated. We are. So, sorry. Sorry.
Passion. Love the passion. If elections were held today, Ruto wins.
Actually, sadly the truth, yes. And the reason why I would say this. Today, notice if the elections were held today. Okay? Notice I said today. Just because there's nobody to vote for on the other side, so to speak. Right now, it's just a movement of against the government, not necessarily have we chosen that indeed this is our leader in whom we trust and this is the person we're going to actually vote for. So literally, a divided opposition, of course, leads to one presidency actually even winning. And someone in an unpopular leader actually even winning. That is actually even something even you can resonate with. So even what will happen is, Ruto would win at this moment in time. And that is something that you Kenyans now need to know. When you're aware of that indeed, at a time like today, President Ruto would actually win a second term right now means that indeed we need to galvanize, not necessarily as around one leader. I like doing this way because at this moment in time, he still has like around two years and some change to become president. The main thing is this. when you galvanize around ideology and around the way in which you're supposed to be governed, and around even the policies in which that we want structured as Kenyans, and the ways in which we want these policies implemented. Because a lot of times what will happen is a lot of leaders will say the things that we want, but the how to, we're going to get to that destination, is what usually persecutes us along the way. Yes, I will lead you to freedom, but in the meantime, you will persecute you, But yeah, it's like, but we're going to get there. But you are, along the way, you're persecuting the people that you're actually even leading. So even right now is the time, even as we have this animosity, there's a lot of hatred against the president. Congratulations, you hate him. But how are we going to galvanize around this energy that we have to make sure that we even push up leaders who we actually now will enact, even put in members of parliament who can actually stand up to a presidency? Not even Ruto. I don't even say Ruto is the problem. Ruto is not the problem. Not even Ruto, any other president, so that we have checks and balances in a real way. There's a legislative and then there's executive. We need to check and balance, because even the judiciary itself is also not doing a lot of checks and balances towards the executive itself.
Yeah, so three things, okay? The first thing, I will want to reiterate what Moses Kuria said, that in 2027, we might not have an election. And what he meant by that is not the literal sense of not having an election, but is when you have a consensus vote, okay? It's like 2-2. We didn't have a vote. Like, it was so clear. It was the candidate who was against Moi was going to win the election. So if there is a consensus vote and it's a binary election, okay, it's either you are Ruto or against Ruto, and there's one candidate against him, that's when Ruto will go home. I think even him, he knows it will be clear cut out that will be going, because it will be either you are voting for Ruto or against Ruto. But the moment you have 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 candidates, Ruto is going to win. And secondly, because for this reason, and I've often told people, and I normally like reiterating this, that a disorganized majority can never win against an organized minority. Yeah. That's why Ruto is not even focusing around the Gen Zs, whatever. Ruto, and this is the thing I think I like about Ruto politically. He knows where he doesn't have votes, and he doesn't even focus around them. And even if you look at Mount Kenya, where he knows that he's not going to get votes in the coming election, he has not been spending time there. He has been spending, and which is morally not so correct, but for political political perspectives. So if you have so many people, and I normally tell people, an election is not like the finance bill where you can build momentum that, we are going to occupy. No, an election is a process. You need to strategize, you need to form a party, you need to agree on one person, etc. The challenge with the opposition is that I think there's so much conflicting of interest to allow them to be together. Because if you look at a guy like Gachagua and Matiang'i, these are two dominating characters. So when you have two dominating characters, it will be very hard even for them to agree. So unless the opposition are able to come with one candidate, then they rally, or Ruto is going to win. Then the last thing I will perhaps say on this, I normally tell people, the forest might change, but the monkeys remain the same. The forest might move from Sugoi, it might change from Urus, Ishaweri, but these monkeys remain the same. What do I mean? In 2002, when we were changing from the Kanu system to now, coming to Kibaki, remember all Kibaki, Raila, Kalonzo, all these people, even Gachagua, even the people we have today, all these people were from Kanu. It's just that now we have changed the branding itself. You want to elect Rigathi Gachagua. He was the deputy president of the country last year. You'll ask about Kalonzo. So all these people, you might want to change the destination of the forest. And this is one of the problems when people are in a desperation condition. That I will elect anything, even if it's that frog. And the moment you elect that frog, you'll find the fraud is actually 10 times worse than Ruto.
I think even that's what we did in the last elections. Yeah. That's why Ruto is in office, actually. Yeah. Even just flipping it. Here's another caveat. There's a different way to look at it. Yeah. I'm thinking, let's say we have 3 people running. Let's say there are 2 candidates. Yeah. Let's say Matangi or whoever. There's even someone else. Yeah. 3 candidates. Yeah. I'm thinking a runoff will happen. Yeah. I'm thinking this 2027 will be the first runoff that we experience. But then now the second round, I know Ruto will be in it. The second round he will lose now, because now we'll be galvanized together. That's what I'm thinking. There'll be a runoff. This time around, they will actually lead to a runoff because there'll be a 3-horse race, and those 3 horses will be very strong. And then now you see the divided, but nobody will reach the 50 plus 1. You remember the 50 plus 1 barrier? Nobody will reach that 50 plus 1. And so what's going to happen is it's going to be the first runoff of the strongest 2 candidates. And that's because now the strongest 2 candidates. Now, of course, the person who is not Ruto now will be able to galvanize, and that runoff now will be the one that will now be the overwhelming win, because I foresee that indeed it will not be a clean first round win for anybody, because I'm seeing there'll be 3 forces coming 2027.
Just maybe responding to that. One, Ruto is a steeplechase kind of politician. He anticipates every kind of scenario. That's one thing that you need to acknowledge about Ruto. I don't think Ruto would allow to foresee a scenario where he goes to a runoff. But secondly, about a runoff, it's very hard, if you look at historically and statistics, to win against an incumbent president in a runoff, because, you'll already be drained. Because remember, election, it's all about resources. Even remember the time when Maraga nullified Raila's election, they couldn't go, not because because they were running out of resources. You can't compete against an income. The resources, they'll outbeat you. The intelligence, people will already be drained. We have tried to remove Ruto. So people, even the young people, the young people don't like going to vote. So if they think about going to vote for the second time, they'll be saying, my guy, we leave it. Then the third thing that I'll tell you, there's a constant factor I've witnessed around Kenyan elections since 2002, 2007, up to this end. The constant factor is around Kalonzo Musyoka. I think he's normally there. It's like that. He's normally he's the swing vote for Kenya. Where even remember when people are deciding in 2002 whether to go where Moi is or not, he's the one who made he was the one who moved the last person to move. In 2007, if Kalonzo was not on Kibaki's side, then Kibaki would not have any chance completely, although we know factually he didn't win the election, but he will not have. So we know Kalonzo will be the swing vote around all these sides.
You think so?
Yeah,
he's the guy that the winner has to convince to come on board.
Yes.
It might be interesting. Yeah. For me, I either way,
it's Karakanithi.
Okay,
yeah.
Ruto is a one-term president.
This one, I'll go further. Ruto has to be a one-term president. And here's what I mean. And this is even beyond Kenya itself. Ruto has to be a one-term president solely because of democracy. And here's what I mean. Him being president again, if he wins re-election, is going to be a dire consequence towards the democracy that we have here in Kenya, because it will legitimize all of his fraudulent actions and everything that he does, that indeed future leaders can actually go and actually continue with this kind of behavior without any solid consequence. A vote is what you as a voter, even me and you, have as power that we use against or even for our leaders. This is the way in which we actually express it effectively and loudly in a public way that even our leaders know. And this is the time even our leaders even cater to us, seeking what we want, because they know that we have the thing that they need for them to acquire the power, for them to lead us and be in positions of representation for us. When it comes to now Ruto being a one-term president, he has to be a one-term president solely so that future leaders in Kenya can know there is a consequence when there is an incompetence in leadership, when you don't listen to us, when you increase housing levy, when you put burdens on us even as leaders, when you actually do not even listen to us when we go to the streets. There is a consequence, and the dire consequence that every leader who is actually in a position of politics that they actually hate is being removed from that position of power when they actually now their term has not, when they have not exhausted all the avenues, the second term and everything, because of course he cannot go third term. That is very important. Not that Ruto has to be a one-term president solely for the sake that our leaders can see that there's a consequence and that they can see that our Kenyan voters have actually changed. And they will show you who's the real boss if you do not conform. And that will make sure that leaders know that indeed you're here to work for the citizenry, not for you to acquire any self-interest objectives that you may have for you or even the funders of even IMF or other issues that you may see there. Your sole propriety is not make budgets that strategize towards IMF. Your sole thing is to make structures and budgets that are straight towards Mama Mboga, even us as citizenry, even the border driver, and not just saying, I'm here for the hustler, but being a real hustler in action. That is the main thing. That's why I say he has to be a one-term president, not that he is going, he has to be.
I think one question that even Ruto has been asking, you people say William Ruto has to go. How? You normally ask the question, how?
Oh, it's easy. Go home. It's easy. Like even that, you want the answer?
Yeah.
You want the answer?
Yeah, I know from like, from a point of euphoria and emotionally just say you go, but constitutionally, that's not how these things work around our country. I told you, the tribal sense around our politics is inherently still deeply rooted. And that's why even I started asking you when we were discussing about the Gen Z thing, why didn't we see the Gen Z protests in areas that are perceivingly are on government side? So even if you go to a number of these Kenyan universities, you told me earlier that you studied in JKUAT, you'll still find this tribal regrouping amongst these Gen Zs themselves, the Onagi whatever, the Mount Kenya, the Coastal whatever, the tribal regroupings. So let me tell you, this is the truth. 2027 will still be ethnically based. It will still be an ethnically based election. Kenya will say whatever, but at the end of the day, they'll still regroup around their ethnic basis. Around, William Ruto going, I tend to like dealing with the numbers. Numbers is very important.
Go ahead.
So we need to check.
Go ahead.
About this one term or Ruto must go. Is it factually based historically? Because the approval rating of any Kenyan president 2 years to an election at the end of their first term is 23.625%. This is not even quarterly. The approval rating of Moi in 1997, when after the whatever Katiba exchange, was at 8.7%. Okay, the approval rating of Mwai Kibaki at 2005, when the referendum thing was cast out, I think it was 41% from the statistics that I show. Then Uhuru Kenyatta in 2015 was 33%. Then remember this, I'm doing the first term, okay, 2 years to an election. Then William Ruto is 12%. So averagely is 23.625%. So if you look at it, it's nothing so unique to William Ruto, because the
He's
approval
12. The lowest
12.
of all of them.
But you see, averagely, the approval rating is as 23.625%.
Why are you averaging it instead of just focusing on the one person?
You
have to also look at it this way. Facts can be read depending on the lens that you look at it. See, where you're looking at the fact is that for me, I'm looking at it, okay, so he's one of the lowest. And he's compared to just Moi. And literally...
Moi had 8.7.
Yes, he's comparing only to Moi. Moi, who him, you cannot even say so much. Even democracy is on that sort of thing. But even when you mentioned about elections, let's talk numbers. Do you know how many new young voters are gonna actually now be registered? They're gonna be the biggest. They're around right now. There were 8 million like in the past. There were youth. There are now how many more Gen Zs were not that were a little bit too young. A majority of Gen Zs were too young for the past election. But yes, and then now this election, they are now old enough and eligible to vote. And
that's why
people vote. You have said this yourself, because even I've seen even interviews, you have said this yourself. People vote more for what against, not necessarily something for. Do you remember those words that you saying yourself? Yes, exactly. So even when it comes to, that's the momentum that even can be pushed. Not even this movement that's actually been going on with the protest is actually building a case against something. People vote against something, and the against something is the Ruto. Hence the emblem, Ruto must go, is powerful, and Ruto has to address it because he recognizes the reason. You also told me that right now in this conversation that Ruto addresses things when he sees them as necessary. Why is he saying the address the Ruto must go thing? Because he sees that indeed this is an emblem and a narrative that people are conglomerating around. And it's easy to use this to now push someone above and remove him out of the seat, because indeed the people who are galvanizing are the majority of voters that he's going to see in 2027.
Let me just tell you something interesting. I've told you again that, about these Gen Z voters. I told you around in 2024, it was very organic. But right now, there's a tribal regrouping even amongst these Gen Z constituents. That's why I asked you, why is it that areas where Gen Zs are perceived to be on government side right now were not involved in the protest?
Do you think tribal is always wrong? And here's what I mean by this.
No, it's not wrong.
It's not wrong. And do you think it will always work against the movement of Ruto must go? Do you think it always, because you have to also remember, you can say that indeed, Simon, the Kikuyu, now I bring in my people. Then I meet my girlfriend who is Luo. And then all of a sudden, now she's also Ruto must go. Because now she brings in her clan. Now we actually now merge, even if we actually now identify in a certain ethnic group, even tribal, does not necessarily mean we do not have common points of pain. And the common points of pain, be it now there's economy, be it now even all the levies and everything, be it even now is the fact that even all the taxes. And then those common pain points now bring us together. And hence we have one resounding voice of Ruto must go, which is now that emblem that we can be in. Even if there's a tribal aspect that you want to bring it up, tribal aspect does not denote the fact that indeed that the movement is not in one unison. Just because we have tribal aspects in Kenya, that so there's laws there, there's whatever, does not mean when we leave the country, we do not identify as Kenyan. Even when we whatever, doesn't identify as Kenyan. So the tribal aspect and the connotation that indeed they want to put in the fact that this may be because the last the protest that was about, it was not even about, it was about commemorating and remembering the last year's people. And there was a previous demonstration about Ojwang. That one you don't want to address because it was really dispersed everywhere, and that one you cannot address it. Do you know why? Because you know very well it was in Mombasa, it was in Nakuru, it was in all aspects of this nation. And even what you see in Sabasaba, you also see the same youth rising up. And one thing that's very effective when it comes to youth is FOMO, fear of missing out. And that is one thing that will actually now bring us together. And then now, if you want to segregate it down into tribes, cool, but in the end, we come together for a bigger cause. The tribe is not the big emblem. The big emblem is Ruto must go. And then now the tribe itself are just the things that indeed you're coming from your cocoon. Oh, come, my brother. And then now we meet because we're connected by this main goal of Ruto must go.
Just one more thing, but perhaps I need to tell you this. It's normally often said, if you can't beat them, join them. If you can't join them, confuse them. Okay, so there's this thing about Linjiru was saying about how, when Matiba came, government mobilized crowds for him, and it got into his head. And the moment it got into his head, he was used to confuse the Mount Kenya people, because they were largest constituents at that time of the voters. Don't also be like that government doesn't have the capability to mobilize a lot of Gen Zs to go in the streets. And the perceivement of those who want to run against Ruto, they might think these ones are their crowds, yet they don't know that these ones are being used by government.
That's true. They're called goons. They're the ones who did quick match.
No, not goons.
Those are the ones. Even they keep on. That's the truth. They're the ones who.
I don't mean. I'm not about.
They're the ones who even were burning that. That's what they.
I don't mean about the goons.
That's what Sakaja was even now walking with.
I'm talking about the goons.
Even those goons. Even they're walking with the officers. Goons. Yeah. See, even what you pointed out is, I agree with you 100%. Of
course, they're goons.
Don't worry that the government.
Even the protesters themselves. There are those who government might have mobilized.
Yeah, no, they're called goons. Those ones, that's what they're called. They're not organic.
Continue. What a great time to stop. I would like the other side to know.
Well, let me know. What would you like me to know? I would like to understand, first of all, based on your way that you've seen my stance, I would really like to know, what do you think that even the people who are protesting and screaming, Ruto must go, what do you think that we are not understanding and the things that we need to know? I would like to know.
Yeah, I think one thing that I like people to know, and this comes from that statement that I'd made, that you can never beat an organized man, no matter how much popular you are, no matter how many you are in your numbers, okay? It normally comes putting the fight where it matters, okay? So like if you look at somebody like Rigathi Gachagua, when he was being impeached, he focused so much on getting the biggest lawyers in this country who, the people who confuse, etc., etc. William Ruto put the fights where it actually matters. Get the MPs, okay? So if you focus so much in putting your fight in things that don't matter, you won't gain. So if you look at even in 2022, what happened, you look at the Azimio side, they are not able to put they brought everything, they brought Diamond, they're able to mobilize these crowds, they had government, etc., etc. But where it matters is on the election day. If they didn't have agents all over, it was just a complete mismanagement of agents all over the country. It will be so easy even for your opponent to steal the election for you. So if there is no a clear sense of organization, particularly on your side of those people who are saying Ruto must go, I can promise you, as sure as it matters, William Ruto will come back. Even if you look at the finance bill 2024, William Ruto put the fight where it matters. The finance bill legally passed. He put the fight on the MPs because that's where the fight matters. So my persuasion or my advice to you people, put the fight where it matters. The fight is not on the streets alone. The fight matters where legally it will count.
I see what you're saying. And here's the counter to this, something that I want you to understand. What you've elaborated is indeed that President William Ruto is just busy politicking and not busy leading. And what I would even want to point out is this. When it comes to the perspective, even one thing I want to, even the pro-Ruto side, even everybody even in government, even now even to the leaders who may even come across even this, one thing is this. When you're busy politicking and you're not busy leading, the constituents will actually let you know, and they'll rise up and they'll come up with their own things, and even there'll be a lot of pushback. Just because you're constructing politics and you're not even leading does not mean that you'll win in politics. Because what happens is this, all those leaders who even President William Ruto is even the MPs and everything, guess who they have to come back to ask for votes? Us. So in the end, we have the final say. What I want to remind you guys is we have the final say. Politics, it sways left and right. But indeed, when you neglect and you start even neglecting the pain of a mother losing her son to the police, and you dare call the protesters as attempted coup, and you call them even terrorists, Kenyans will remember. And when you dare actively go out of your way to make sure that you're putting in taxes, housing levy, and other things, basic needs, you're removing the exceptions for even bread and other things that we consume every single day, as bread is now even 70 shillings and used to be even 55. We will remember because our stomachs are hungry right now. And the thing is this, that hunger will now make people rise up, and not only that, not only go to the streets. You think we're terrorizing you now? Goja, just wait. There is more to happen, and we'll terrorize you where it hurts the most when it comes to the poor. Another thing is this, your job as a leader, yes, is to do politics. But at the same time, your job as a leader is to execute on duty and mandate allocated to you. And when you neglect mandate and duty for the sole purpose of politics, to pursue a personal agenda that you have set aside, Kenyans not only will remember, but we hold it as hostile against you. Because what we see is this, a desensitization of the leadership who does not care and leads with their own agenda, and they want to bull rush whatever the Kenyans say is important to them. They do not even want to listen. They brush it off as this is not something as important as you have just said, that indeed President William Ruto focuses on only what's important to him because he knows exactly what to put emphasis on. So that's indeed, he's saying that indeed I choose to neglect the needs of the people that I'm leading for the sole purpose of my own personal agenda. And one thing I want to say, Kenyans will remember, and they will shout loud and clear. Not only will they say Ruto must go, but Ruto will go as a necessity. That is the truth.
Allow me just to say this, finally. The two important things that I need just to put clear out to you. The first objective of any government in the world globally is often political stability. when you do not have
social stability, not political.
no political stability. Even if you look at Mwai Kibaki, if you look at Uhuru Kenyatta, those margins of handshakes that they did to Raila gave them the conducive environment to do this. Because, Uhuru Kenyatta was at a point that how can you run a country when already you have somebody who wants to run a parallel government to you, So political stability is often the first objective of any president in power. But the second thing I also need to tell you, the problem is not even with the political class. The problem is with the Kenyans themselves. Because
Explain.
Because the Kenyans are the ones who on social media will say of all these kind of politicians they want. But when it comes where it matters at the ballot, I'm telling you, these Kenyans are the same Kenyans who will re-elect these people. They're the ones who will shout, how they want them to go. But in the last election, they re-elected half of them to come back to the House, 140 members of parliament.
That's a reduction from the previous one. If you notice it's a trajectory, what you notice is that the trajectory of there's a growth of the Kenyan voter. Yeah. What you need to recognize is also, if you look back at history, the growth of the Kenyan voter is actually growing up in the sense that even right now, a lot of them will not go back because there's a reduction of the amount of MPs and elected members going down is constantly reducing because the Kenyan voter is actually growing up and actually even learning. The issue is this: never have a higher bar for the Kenyan citizenry than the leader. Leaders always have the higher bar because they put in the position of authority and put in the position in which they enact laws that affect us. So never have that higher bar for any Kenyan citizenry. The Kenyans, they should be expressing their disdain towards even the current regime. They should do that because they're exercising their rights, and that is something that they're going to continue on doing. And one thing, I'll repeat it again: Ruto must, shall, and will go.